The expansion of world trade has brought huge benefits to Boeing. In the past decade, air travel has grown by 7% a year. Airlines carried over 1.5 billion passengers last year, and which is set to double in the next. We have seen deregulations of airline industry, which has stimulated growth and opened up to new markets. Needless to say, these positive effects of globalization has led Boeing to be the biggest manufacturer of commercial aircrafts. However, globalization has also brought with it its key challenges. Today we are joined by an expert panel of aviation analysts who will talk us through these key challenges.
Welcome to the program. I'm joined today by expert panelists. Let me introduce you to aviation specialist at Focus Aviation Group. So what are the 5 forces acting on Boeing in particular from the past 2 years?
The airline supply business is mainly dominated by Boeing and Airbus. For this reason, there isn't a lot of cutthroat competition amongst suppliers. The bargaining power of buyers in the airline industry is quite low. Obviously, there are high costs involved with switching airplanes, but also take a look at the ability to compete on service. Rivalry between Airbus and Boeing has always been present. The rivalry, however, is pushed into the media spotlight when a new aircraft is launched by both. The Airbus A380 and the Boeing Dreamliner, a new aircraft from the competitors, are both aimed to be greener, larger and more innovative than their rival. Unfortunately, Boeing was behind schedule on the first flight of the Dreamliner, giving Airbus A380 a more competitive edge.
Thank you, Priya.
Thank you. The first factor I'd like to introduce you to would be an opportunity for Boeing in terms of a SWOT analysis. So, entering a new market. Because of the current state of the global economy, expanding your company into new markets could be very beneficial for you. Examples of new markets could be Saudi Arabia, India and China, as these locations are not currently affected by the global recession. Progressing into these markets could increase sales and revenue for your company. The next point I'm going to discuss with you would be a threat for Boeing. This is a threat of a new entrant. Currently in China, they have an entrant called Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China Limited, also known as COMAC. If COMAC were to gain a larger amount of the global market, they could potentially become a threat to your company as well as Airbus. The final issue that I'm going to bring to your attention is the strategy gamble for Boeing. I've noticed that your main focus for the new generation of airlines is a point-to-point business model. However, your main competitor Airbus has focused more on a hub-to-hub model, moving a vast amount of people and connecting flights from large hubs. Depending on what the consumers need or prefer will determine whether they would choose your direct and speedy flights or Airbus's connecting flights to the larger hubs.
When examining Boeing using PEST analysis, we have identified several key issues. First, obviously, is the slower economic growth in the global market. There is slower growth forecasted for 2010 globally, and Boeing will see the impact of this with less orders placed by the airline industry. The second headache for Boeing has been the high oil prices. This again has been a huge burden on the airline industry, and we don't see any drop in the prices in the coming future. There are of course also great environmental concerns in the aviation industry. Boeing has been labelled as one of the worst corporate polluters and ranks in the top toxic 10, and this is of course very damaging for their global brand.
So what are the measures taken to work through these challenges, Linda?
Well, Boeing looks to new markets and have established a global supply chain network incorporating new technologies to reduce CO2 emissions and to research into biofuels. This will give Boeing strength in the global market and less reliant on the fossil fuel prices. This brings with its own set of challenges, as 70% of Boeing's new generation of airplanes are made of components from outside the US. Huge delays in a badly managed supply chain has led to several years of delays to their customers and holding up currently $144 billion in over 780 orders. Where would you categorize Boeing in the competing values framework?
Boeing is a global company, and despite features from other management models, Boeing, as the manufacturer, built its management on a rational goal model basis, aiming to a high rate of productivity and reaching long-term goals. As for globalization, it is absolutely essential to realize its importance for the company's growth and keep its tendency. A majority of its income over last years comes from outside US, as well as around 47% of its jobs exist thanks to Boeing's global engagement.
What would be the recommendations you could give to Boeing?
From all their issues, environmental factors and the competition with Airbus are these of great importance. Both of them require a huge concentration of people, money and focus. Therefore, it is recommended to narrow the scope of management interests on these, rather than work on hundreds of programs at a time. Invest more in education to bring up specialists who would intensively work on reducing energy consumption and how to find use for alternative energy sources, for example, sustainable biofuels. The other advice would be to apply more from the internal process model by raising the control of time schedules and quality of production of components manufactured outside US. That might then lead to delivering new airplanes with smaller delays and therefore with smaller revenue losses. And thirdly, Boeing needs to reinforce the rational goal model by risk and contingency planning, which in critical situations will hinder the suspension of production.
Thank you.
Overcoming these key challenges is crucial and falls in line with Boeing 2016 vision. People working together as a global enterprise for aerospace leadership.